So these two chants were pretty good indications of what it means to be present, which is the question I was asking. What does it mean to be present? Seems like the point of meditation is to be present, be in the present moment. What is that? When are you not in the present moment? And what if your present moment is a bad one? Or difficult or painful? And what if it's pleasurable? So the other day, I was at the barber's. And
a horrible moment.
I love it. Love the barber. But the person who was before me didn't love the barber. And there was obviously some sort of problem in his mind. No, I mean, literally. He obviously was under some extreme distress for some reason. He started shouting. I was the only other person in the barber shop. He started shouting, and he would get up from his seat in the middle of the haircut and start shouting, and the barber was like, just whatever he could do. I mean, he's holding scissors. And I was sitting there, and the question that came to my mind was, what is the right way to be present in this moment? How can I be, what is the most skillful way to be here now? And when there's somebody who is having a sort of a fit, basically, like if you ever have kids and you see them have a fit. He was a grown up having a fit. And huh?
In Hebrew?
What?
Translate what is it?
A fit? Like he was having...
It's
Well, no, I don't mean epileptic.
No, of course not. It can be a psychotic.
He was like, yeah. He was having a temper tantrum. He was having a temper tantrum.
Which in Hebrew is?
It's hysteric.
Panika.
A meltdown. I don't know if it was panic, but he obviously was having a real time at home, hard time at home. I got some backstory afterwards. The barber kind of told me. And but anything the barber would say, this guy, it just set him off even more, right? And I kind of knew I shouldn't even look in that direction. Like even if I look at him, if he sees me looking, he's probably going to make it worse. I couldn't look. It's hard not to. You want to look, like going by an accident. You want to slow down and look like everybody else. I don't know what that is about. So, what's the right way to be present when someone is, out of control? And it's not my place to really get involved. Like, it was not for me to get involved and say, let me try to help here. No, that probably would have had the opposite effect. I knew that. But what should I do? Just sit there. Yeah. At some point he left. Then it was my turn to sit in the chair. And of course he told me that people always, the barber then said, not to that degree, but it happens. That people start talking about the personal lives in the barber's chair. It's like kind of a cheap psychologist. And then they just let it all out. So it's my turn to hear the barber's problems. But that got me thinking, what is, we often think that being present is sort of, in a lot of mindfulness courses, they do like a raisin trick. And they give everyone a raisin and say, I want you to really focus on this and eat the raisin mindfully. Be present with this raisin. You take 5 minutes with this raisin. and experience everything and experience your thoughts and the saliva and then how the flavors dissipate and then become just nothing and then notice your desire and the whole experience of eating a raisin. So present. And that's useful. But it doesn't help at a barber when there's somebody who's out of control. The raisin is not going to be so useful in that situation. Which gets me to a certain question or, I think, problem with the way mindfulness and present mind is often understood as a kind of highlight of your experience. You can highlight it, sort of look in a magnifying glass, or put on a, I don't know if you have these apps with your photos, you can press it and it sort of brightens it, brightens the photo. Wow. Suddenly the raisin is like super raisin. It was raisin-fied or something, it added extra color. And that's kind of an approach to mindfulness is if you're more present, then things become enhanced. Did I want the really tense situation to be enhanced? Or does it mean that I can't be present mind and mindful when it's difficult? Because if it's just about sort of getting more out of your experience, maybe more control, more, picking and choosing what I want to be mindful of so that, I'm picking and choosing, basically I'm selecting what I like. So mindfulness is only useful when it's good and pleasant. Well, that's enjoyable, but that's kind of half the story, isn't it? Because a lot of our experience is not sweet raisin. And it's not a guy screaming in your face or in the room, nearing violence. It's not that either all the time. Sometimes it's just, feeling stuck or being late for something or sort of nagging anxiety or a sense of displeasure or dissatisfaction or frustration or boredom. And how can I be mindful? Where's the raisin in the boredom, And if I accentuate that or highlight that, does it mean I'm just more bored? Huh? So is mindfulness of boredom meaning that I'm now super bored? This is a problem. So what's being present when the present is not so much fun? Hope you have an answer. This is why we need to rely on the teachings more. Because if we think it's just, about looking more closely and having your experience in a more unfiltered way, or filtered good, we're missing what we were just chanting here. The insights, the depth of what mindfulness is really about. And this is what I want to explore a little bit, is being present. What does it mean to be present? Being present. Present mind. Suzuki Roshi said that when he talked about beginner's mind, which is the term for being present in Zen, he said beginner's mind is actually, he said Dogen, the founder of Zen, said, is compassionate mind. Well, that's really, really interesting. Beginner's mind, like being present, is actually experienced as compassion. Well, that's not what I was expecting, was it? Especially with a raisin. So being real present and beginner's mind is compassionate mind. So maybe this opens up something that I didn't expect. Maybe mindfulness is not about my experience all the time. Maybe actually it's not even about me and what I'm experiencing. Because then it's just sort of attachment, you know, or grasping, or self-grasping. And that kind of is the opposite of what this project is about. You know, the Buddhist project is really about liberation. Liberation from what? From suffering. Well, what's causing suffering? Yourself. I mean, if I look back at this guy, I mean, he could have had a nice haircut, but like his mind could not settle. Like he just couldn't sit and you know, and be there. He couldn't be there. He was like in his troubled home so much that, you know, everything was just a disaster. Sometimes we're not so far off from that. Maybe we don't go to that extreme, but you've all had the experience of being in what could have been a pleasant environment, and it just is like, you know, you can't stand yourself. Yeah, you just can't be there. There's this saying by a layman Pang, this enlightened layperson in the Zen tradition. He said, miraculous activity, you know, drawing water from the well and hauling firewood. That was like a big motto then in Zen, you know, miraculous activity. Meaning, what is the mindfulness? So what is he seeing that I'm not seeing? What am I missing here? You know, when he says miraculous activity, this wonder of doing something like drawing water from a well, for us, like turning on the tap, miraculous activity. Turning on the tap, flushing the toilet, you know, washing dishes, miraculous activity. And firewood, what's the equivalent of hauling firewood? I don't know. Going to work, or turning on the lights, turning off the lights. When did that become ordinary for us? When did that become, you know, just something for the sake of something else? When did our lives end up being a means to an end? And we usually don't get there. So when did that happen? What a habit. So there are 4 types of being present that I want to point to. The first one is focus. Right? Being present as a state of mind that has a certain focus to it. What kind of focus? Well, it's focused specifically on your present experience. So yeah, it's the raisin, or it's the anger, or whatever, or your breath, or your body. And what does that mean? It means that you notice when you are drifting by mental habit or inertia to past and future, which happens a lot, right? So even going back to the barber again. This guy was out of control. Where was his mind? It was in the past. It was in the past. Like whatever argument he was having, you know, whatever real, I don't know, situation. Where was that situation? It wasn't in that. It wasn't in the store. It was before. It wasn't with us now. It was in his mind from the past. It doesn't mean he shouldn't be troubled by it. But is now the time to be troubled by it? Or is now the time to sit in a chair and get your haircut? Right? If we cannot let go of the past, we're not so different from that guy. Now maybe the past is sentimental and I'm like really in love with my past and, you know, romanticizing what happened in the past. That also is pretty tragic too, isn't it?
It's attachment.
It's attachment. And in comparison, this moment is going to pale. This moment is not going to seem so special. The miracle's gone. Right? So yeah. Does it mean that I shouldn't have fond memories? Does it mean that I shouldn't have, you know, difficult memories and thoughts? No. But when is the time to think about them? And if I notice that my mind is sort of always drifting there, okay, then I'm not really making a choice. So that's one thing, is noticing when the mind is going past and future. Should I never make plans? Does being present mean I can't make plans for tomorrow? Of course not. But are you choosing to make your plans? Or is your mind just going there by force of habit? you will much more skillfully make plans and deal with the past if you choose when to go there. And if you choose that this is not the time, I'm just rehashing it over and over again in a closed circuit that is repeating itself. When you're meditating is not the time to be thinking and trying to repair your past relationships or to make future ones. That is just not the time for it. There is a time for that, and you decide when. But make that decision and know when not. Because then you save a lot of energy instead of always having to bring your mind back. Oh, there I am again, there I am again. So mindfulness is noticing when you're always drifting and making the choice to come back to what your original focus was. Does it mean it's going to be a breath for the whole day? No, you won't get anything done. But when you do choose it to be a breath, you're training the mind to notice when you're not there. And you come back. Okay? So there we're getting back to the point of the reason. The point of the reason not to say that, I'm just want to enjoy my life and have pleasure. No. Is to be able to be with one thing. And in the beginning of mindfulness training, and it is a training, we choose to train on pleasant experiences. It's just easier. And you don't go for the hard things first. So yeah, you go for the breath, because the breath is easy, okay? And it's not unpleasant for most of us. Or you do something like a cup of tea or raisin. Great. That's just the first part of being present though, which is noticing when you're past and future all the time and coming back to this experience. What does the present mean? What you're actually, in a sensual way, experiencing now. Breath and body. Okay? The first foundation of mindfulness that the Buddha taught was the foundation of body. In the Satipatthana Sutra, body, which is the breath and the sensations. So that's a real good place to start. But that's only the one aspect. Another way of practicing present mind is what happens, what is the state of mind when you are present? What is the state of mind? Is it just sort of neutral? Right? Is it just neutral? What is your state of mind? What is your experience when you do really focus on something? Even when what you're really looking at is painful and difficult. What is that? Well, there is the miraculous activity. That's what, Layman Pang was talking about. Miraculous doesn't mean great. It just means this is unique. This is unique. It's incomparable. The present moment that you choose to focus on is happening once and once only. Right? It's a one-time event. So that creates a sort of specialness, a uniqueness to your experience. It's no longer just, this again. It's this. It's not again. Right? So that's the beginner's mind aspect, is that something opens up that when you really do pay attention, you see that your moment is unique. Right? It's special. And remember, special doesn't mean good or bad. It just means, wow, this demands my attention. Right? Even if it's just the same old breath. What you lose is same old. What you gain is breath. So that's the next part that it leads into. The first one is focus. The second one is the specialness of it. The specialness. Without that, your meditation is going to be real dry. And you're going to stop. It's not going to be, an important practice for you. The third aspect, though, is real important. And that's what I was pointing to with the chanting that we did. Okay? Up until now, a lot of mindfulness, especially, like secular mindfulness, non-Buddhist or like Parv mindfulness, is those two stages, which is focus on the present and notice that there's a sense of calm abiding and even joy there. The samadhi, meaning the calm awareness that comes from present moment, opens up something special, that beginner's mind. A lot of mindfulness, especially in mindfulness-based stress reduction, right, which is really the mainstream approach of dealing with, pain and stress in a non-Buddhist way is dealing with those two aspects. It's like notice when your mind is not present, and then notice how special it is to be present. But that's where it ends. It's really useful, but it stops there. And therefore, it's really good for things like, business management, sports teams, things like that. I'm not actually, I used to think it was funny, but now I think, hey, it's actually good. They might as well, if you're going to apply it to work. Apply it to work. Go ahead. But then if we really want to enter mindfulness and present mind from the Dharma point of view, we need to then understand how it is a reflection of the teachings. It opens up insight. It opens up insight into the nature of reality. We're not just being present in order to see that life is special and this moment is unique. But this moment, I'm gaining insight into the nature of reality, the nature of mind. And so understanding the teachings and the background of the teachings and will help give me orientation to my present. My present is not just this, experience, but it's this experience in a perspective, in an orientation, with the wisdom. And what is this wisdom? Understanding that this moment is revealing the truth of impermanence and of unsatisfactoriness and of non-self. The three marks of existence. When I really, really sit with my experience, that's what arises. That insight naturally is born. Whatever I'm looking at, it's totally unique. And it is totally transient. It's completely impermanent. As I observe, it changes. I cannot look at a solid moment. Whatever I'm looking at is moving. Whatever I'm looking at is changing. That, yes, reflects back to make me appreciate it more. Because, hey, it's here and gone. So this is precious. It's even more precious now. So the understanding of the impermanence of all reality and all phenomena then swings back and makes me even more present because it's so fleeting and I don't want to miss it. You see? You need to understand mindfulness in the context of the teachings in order to make it a strong and true practice. Otherwise it's just like, it's a nice recreation. It'll help me. Okay? It'll help me. But it won't release you. We don't just want to be helped. We want to be free and liberated. And by understanding impermanence, by understanding dukkha, right, that often when I don't see the changing nature of reality, and when I don't see that, phenomena is very ephemeral, then what do? Like we said, I get attached to it, or I have aversion to it. So if I don't understand that things are impermanent, then the difficulty that I'm facing, I'm going to have a lot of aversion to. If I don't have aversion to it, though, and instead I observe it, and I observe my difficult feelings with it, and some of that difficulty may be fear, then what happens? This gets back to what Suzuki Roshi was suggesting. If you're really mindful, and you can look at pain without fear, then compassion arises. Right? But it's only when you can look at it without aversion. If you can look at it clearly, then the compassionate mind arises. Because you're no longer about me and them.
What do you mean about not looking with aversion? And you say, if there is a fear, there is aversion, there is idea. So how it can be. Because if I fear for something, if it's not because I have idea, it will be. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If I'm with fear, how can I be free from fear?
By observing your fear as part of your conditioned, reactions. Like we all have this sort of history. right? Or our own personal karma. So let's say you're facing something real difficult, like somebody shouting in your face or something, right? And you're like, I'm afraid of this person, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But you are observing very clearly that whole chain reaction, that relationship. You're observing your feelings very closely. You're not trying to deny them, right? And you're also not trying to hold on to them as saying, me.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it's not just the aversion that we have to notice. We have to also notice the attachment. Fear also comes out of strong attachment, right? Who I am,
Mm-hmm.
what's threatening to me, and what's good for me, right? You notice that too, that the aversion and the attachment are really together. What does it mean? That you're going to face your fear without fear.
Mm-hmm.
The mindfulness, the awareness that we're talking about here, is not a self-centered awareness. It's just a non-judgmental awareness. So can you look at your experience, even though it's fearful, without judgment? Like, I see the fear. It's okay. Right? It's here. What happens when you look at something without, immediate good, bad? What happens to that? That's what I'm wondering. Okay? And that's what I mean by being present with a type of awareness that can appreciate your moment as, not only real, but not solid. This is the sort of subtle insight that we get by looking at experience. It's real and not permanent. So when you look at your fear itself, you see that it's not a solid thing. As you look at it, it changes. So then what does that do to your sense of self? And maybe to your freedom from fear? If the very thing you were experiencing changes while you observe it, what happens? This is the experiment. So, the mindful awareness, present mind, is focused mind, meaning not past or future. It's beginner's mind, unique mind, meaning it's seeing this moment as one of a kind, incomparable, miraculous activity. And that happens by just the simple act of paying attention. Whatever you pay attention to becomes special. Right? That's the nature of attention. You pay attention to it, it becomes special. Right? Present mind, being present, is situated at the heart of the teachings. It's supported and it is given depth by being a reflection and being by being really immersed in the teachings. The orientation we have for being present is from these liberating teachings. It's not separate from them. There's no mindfulness without understanding the nature of reality. And the fourth aspect of being present, which is real important too, is called active presence. Otherwise, we're just like sitting on the seat, and it's enough just to be observer. But it's not enough to be observer because there's a world out there that kind of needs you. It's not enough just to be an observer. You have to be an active observer, right? An active observer. What does that mean? By practicing present mind and mindfulness really, sincerely, and having it immersed in the teachings of liberation, then you have greater insight into, basically, how do I then relate to this what do I do? And how can I do this and maintain present mind? How can I be mindfully active? Now you can only do that, make that choice after you've kind of made stable your present mind through these stages of noticing, increasing your focus, increasing the present appreciation, being immersed in the teachings, and then how do I relate? How do I relate to the very thing I'm observing? So, for instance, back to the barber. It was obvious to me that the only thing I could do was nothing. Right? The best action in that situation was to sit. Was to just sit there and let the storm pass. Right? Just stay inside my home. That was the best course of action. Is that always the course of action? Because you're a meditator and you just sit? No, not at all. But that's the mindful action. Right? How can I be active from a mindful place? You'll only really know that when you go through these other three stages of mindfulness. If you first just jump to them, you never, how do we know what to do unless we've stabilized our mind? How do we know what to do? I mean, you jump to an action, what happens? You're relating it pretty purely from your sense of self and what you think is right and wrong. Once you've let go of that, then you observe and you say, okay, well, what is the right thing to do here? So that's the fourth aspect of mindfulness. And it is a practice of mindfulness, to be mindfully active. So while you're doing and while you're relating, you're still noticing breath. You're still noticing that you're going to past and future and you're bringing it back to focus. All of these things are not stages that we then graduate from and I move on to the next stage. They're all interrelated so that it becomes one practice. But they're useful to separate in order to say, okay, I'm noticing that I'm not focused. I'm going a lot to past and future. Then come back to breath, to these foundations of mindfulness. Okay, going to come back to body. Going to come back to noticing mind objects. And come back to noticing what's going on inside me. From that place then, I can pay attention. And the attention that I have really is focused and appreciates this moment. Okay? When you can clear past and future, what you pay attention to is special. From that specialness, I see deeply into the nature of reality. I see deeply that what I'm looking at is changing. Right? And it doesn't have a self that I define, that I can define. This person, place, and thing is not according to my definition. And there's a lot of dukkha involved when I do hold on to my definition. Right? And then from that place, I have a better insight, a better idea what I can do. What's the most helpful thing in this situation? It extends naturally from all that present mindfulness. So, if you've noticed, anyone, I don't know if they're around here, the almond trees? Are there any almond trees? Shkediot? You know? Shkedia? Almond tree blossoms? The almond blossoms? Yes, have you seen them? So I was watching this documentary about the Cherry Blossom Festival a couple days ago. I said, they look just like almond blossoms. They look just like, maybe the almond ones are a little smaller, but still they look very similar. They really do. Same family?
It's very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are like these pink ones too here. Really nice. I don't know, if you don't have it in Tel-Aviv area, then make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, the Jerusalem area at least, and to see some. You don't need to go to the Kotel, just go to the almond trees and you'll know you've gone far enough. So, why am I bringing this up though? Because in Japan they have this whole, they actually have a forecast. They have like not a weather forecast, they have like a cherry blossom forecast.
For each day.
Yeah. Sakura Zensen, they call it. Like the forecast each day, how much blossoming and where, and it goes through the whole range of islands. And then people go out and they have a festival, right? And they sit and they eat and drink and they have like this whole incredible, festival. Even in the middle of Tokyo, it's like everyone goes out to see the almond blossoms. But it's not just because they're beautiful. They are beautiful. What did I say? Almond blossoms? I meant cherry blossoms. It's not just because they're beautiful. They are beautiful, just like the almond blossoms are. But what makes them even more beautiful and more appreciated is the fact that they are so temporary. You see them, and as soon as they blossom, they start to rain down. It's a 2-week season, pretty much. That's it, right? Like the almond blossoms. What makes them so special is that when you see them, they're almost gone. They're here and gone. There's actually a Japanese sentiment, I think it's called Omon no Aware. And it is the sort of sadness that comes from recognizing the impermanence of the beautiful. It's like this whole sentiment that is captured in the cherry blossoms. Like the whole culture is kind of into that. And yet, it makes them go out and sit under the trees because they feel sad. But it's a happy sad. It's a happy sad. Just like we can be afraid and confident and brave. We can be afraid and brave at the same time. Happy sad. The cherry blossoms, the almond blossoms, your life passing, the impermanence, so fleeting. This moment's gone forever, never to return. Life and death are in a marriage. This is your present. It's passing as you see. So we probably should pay more attention. So before we end with a minute to sit and let all the words pass into silence, anyone want to say or ask anything? You're always invited during the talk, but now.
Question. Can you stand on the difference between being present during meditation and during not in meditation? Because you spoke a little bit of it, if you can just stand on the difference a little bit.
Yeah. The presence that we cultivate in meditation is pretty much more focused on breath and body, right? Specifically on breath. And so we're choosing very intentionally not to go to past or future. Right? And you're trying to be really aware when you do that and to bring your mind back. Right? So for a certain amount of time. So it's got a certain formality to it. Right? You keep a time and you have a sort of border. And you say, okay, during this time, I'm going to sit, and you intentionally choose an object for your focus. You need to choose an object, first of all. Otherwise, you're just sitting and you're like, could be a daydream. The object brings you back. So what you're cultivating is the awareness not just of the object, but the awareness when you have left the object. Right? So you're training the mind to do that. So that's the meditation. Now, non-meditation means that that sort of present mind is less formal, but the training is still coming into play. So instead of saying like, now I'm going to be at the computer, I'm going to be working, I'm going to be like noticing email and noticing when I'm not emailing. No, you're not doing that as, vocally or, explicitly. Right? But you still are trying to be with one thing at one time. One thing at one time. And you're choosing what that one thing is. And it's not just, you're letting your mind just wander. So you'll notice when your mind's wandering, you say, wait, this is, I need to be doing this now. You're not calling it meditation, but the approach of meditation of saying, I want my focus to be more intentional. That's kind of what we're doing. Now, whether that one thing is, say, at work, whether that one thing is when you're walking from the bus or the car to your door, that one thing. Is it enough? What we tend to notice is when we don't practice meditation, that we always need to add more to our experience in order to make it more enhanced. So I can't just walk on the street. I need to walk with earphones, I need to be looking at some screen, and I need to be eating something all at the same time, and maybe even try to have a conversation. Like, get as much in as possible, because I think I still have a little bit of mental space left. Right? So we just clear that away and explore what it means to be doing one thing. That's sort of the meditation in life.
Thanks.
Someone else had a question?
Yeah, it was a similar question. I find it very difficult to be aware while I'm doing highly cognitive tasks, like programming or solving problems and stuff. So you gave a few words.
Yeah. Well, it begs the question, like, what do we mean by being aware? And basically, by, placing your attention on the job you need to be doing now, and noticing when you've left that. Right? So, that's pretty much it. And as I said, the more we place attention to something, the more unique and special that it is, so that we don't feel like we need more. Because the heart of dukkha is the feeling that we need more. That's the biggest problem, is that we always need more. More of this or that, different person, different job, different place, different whatever. We just want more of the good feeling that I'm alive. Where's that feeling going to come from? Feeling that you're alive, where's that going to come from? Not from those things. Don't want to spoil your party, but just not from those things. It's from the attention you place on your own life at this moment. That will give you the feeling of being alive.
I think it's attention and wisdom. They cannot be separated. For example, in walking, so you can have a lot of attention, but maybe doing like lying or doing harming someone. So you need to be with wisdom. It's not only focusing. Like you're focusing, but bringing a lot of wisdom to it.
Yeah. I think it's an intuitive thing. Like as I said, the third aspect of being present was that it's situated within the teachings. You need to explore the teachings and learn the teachings. But you don't necessarily need to be consciously thinking of that while you're doing your work. It may arise to you, when you're sitting thinking, oh, this is not right livelihood, But you don't need to be at every moment while you're working thinking, right livelihood.
Not right livelihood, but like for example, lying or not lying. Like it's need to be like I'm writing a sentence now, an email.
It's hard to lie mindfully.
No, actually, it's very intuitively. Like magel pinot po, magel shan.
Yeah, but again, because you're thinking about future goals. You see, you want something in the future, so you lie to get it.
כן, כל אימייל שאתה כותב הוא עם מטרה שיגיע לאיפשהו, הרי הוא לא נכנס, אתה לא לוחץ על פח השפעה בסוף האימייל, אתה לוחץ על send. אז יש פה איזה פיוטר מסוים, אבל זה פיוטר עם... לא, זה פשוט התרגול, ואז זה תרגול, ואז יש האם אני משקר פה, מעגל פינה, או שאני מבין שיש ערך לא לשקר. אבל זה תרגול, זה מדיטציה. בתור היסטוריון בכלל לשקר, אבל כן.
Sounds like you've got your work cut out.
Oh.
There is time for one more.
Yeah, of course.
If I get it right, the four things that you said, it's about right action, to do with the right action, or action in life.
Yeah, it leads to that.
Yeah, the fourth.
Mm.
And you talk that everything is, when there is awareness, everything is special, unique, and changing all the time. So if there is, everything is changing all the time, why need to be with action?
Mm.
It's, I don't get it, because if everything is changing, you are, so why the four things? It's about action, because if this is the reality, so, and this is like me, not separate, but and this
We
is
need
all,
puppets, so we need like a puppet show.
and this is every time changing. So if I act, it's this is changing and I'm changing, and what is about
Like, why not
action?
just let it be?
Yeah.
It go its own way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the causes and conditions from so many actions that were done from unwise places. A lot of the actions that we've chosen and that have been chosen by others were done from places of not, having much kindness or wisdom, right? So that moved everything in a certain direction that is harmful. So it's not just letting that be, but how can I then contribute in a better way to this sort of ball of action? See, everybody's contributing to this ball of action. It's all like moving. Right? But a lot of those contributions were from selfish intentions, and it caused harm. Right? So how can I contribute to that in a better way? Because remember, what we really want is to reduce suffering. Like that's the main kind of intention behind all of this. We're not just wanting to be present, but to be present in order to help. It's all about how we can be of benefit to ourselves and others. And benefit means to reduce suffering and increase happiness.
Without judgment, because
Yeah,
Yeah.
what is unwholesome? Unwholesome is that which causes harm, It's not bad because if I say bad, I'm starting to perhaps describe the person and not the action. But there are helpful and wholesome actions and unhelpful ones. And so that action, how can it be one that, things are moving and changing, but a lot of that movement and change was motivated by selfishness. And so how can I kind of steer it more towards, kindness? So I think that's how we think, it's changing, what's the point? Because we can probably we can help out. Like there's what to do in terms of reducing suffering. There's how to help. Even in a moving situation, like you move along with it, and you can help it move in a direction that is, happier. Yeah.